When people talk about things that have happened decades ago, I often hear people say, but that was a different time and it was a different culture. Do you think that was true? Is that how it was perceived?
I think that there was much less challenging of it. The men just behave like that, and they always will, and there's nothing much you can do about it. I don't think women thought it was acceptable. I think men thought they were absolutely and totally entitled. I think nowadays they may be a bit more cautious.
From your experience and the way you've seen things go, where do you think the change needs to come from?
The change really needs to come in the workplace, because where it's really serious, where it really matters, is where women are vulnerable because their whole career depends on the person who's harassing them. That's where it's really toxic. And much more probably in the less glamorous, less visible. I think what you don't see in the invisible world of unglamorous work, I suspect, is far worse. Also, I think there is confusion between the workplace and life outside. And I'm not sure that you agree with me about this, but I think a world in which spearmint rhino is fine and all the lads from the office go out together a night out, and then they're supposed to go back into the office and regard the women in the office as some utterly different species. It's about the whole attitude to women, whoever they are, whether they're pole dancers or prostitutes or whoever. I think it's all on one continuum.
So I don't really worry so much about the strip clubs and prostitution. I like to bring it back to personal liberty. I think a lot of people I know would say, you know, we're open-minded, we're happy for everybody to do what they want, but I want to have control over myself and what I do. And I don't speak for everything else that happens in society. The conversation needs to remain around power dynamics. If you're open to exploitation because people know that you're going to put up with things because you need to get paid that week, have a job, you know, sort your rent out, those are the issues which we can potentially try and fix.
You're absolutely right, because people have hit back on this. You know, you read the articles in the Mail and the Sun saying, oh, this is a lot of snowflakes whinging, because they completely blur the line, as if women complaining about some man who doesn't have any power over them putting a hand on them or putting a hand on their knee, and you think, well, you know, big deal. It's only a big deal if she's not in a position to say bugger off because she's on a short-term contract, because she's relying on this person for promotion, because if she does, he'll put the word around in the workplace that she's trouble. You're right. We really need to focus on what matters most, and that is about power. And in most workplaces, the people in positions of power are predominantly men.
I have to say though, some of my best allies are men, and they are really amazing, and they've made everything much easier for the women around them. And I do feel like I want to just
absolutely. There are feminist men, and there are many more decent men than there used to be. In your generation, loads more, and that's a very good thing. Also though, you know, call out the women traitors. I mean, the Sarah Vines, the Alison Pearsons, the Julia Hartley-Brewers, the Anne Robinsons. They do unbelievable damage. Because after all, you know, 85% of the press is right-wing and delights in women like that who say, oh, these women are just snowflakes, why can't they take it, and all of that. I mean, they are the real enemy.
A lot of people I know who are in creative industries, or they're very, very ambitious, they're finding themselves in situations where the ambition to do a job is meaning that they're having to let things which make them uncomfortable slide. This idea that people are snowflakes and they get really sensitive about things, I think is really unfair, because most of the time, most people I know are just getting on with things. It's only now that this discussion is happening and people are saying, has anything happened to you? People are being actively asked, and that's where we're having this moment of just, it's like purification. Everyone's kind of getting it out of their system. I don't think that people are snowflakes though, and I think that's really, really unfair. And I think that the men who say things like, well, what do they expect? I almost wonder if there's any point starting a dialogue with them. Some of the conversations I've had with people, I just think, this is a conversation that can go somewhere, and this is a conversation that can't. And those kinds of guys, I wonder if they're...
No, you've got to fight it every time.
Do you think so?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to have that row every time. even if they think you're a real pain in the neck.
But isn't it exhausting,
Never let it go.
Don't
Yes,
you find it tiring?
but life is full of tiring arguments. I spend my time fighting, I suppose, a lot. And maybe people find it infuriating. But I think there are things you can't let go.
But how do you find time to do everything else, like your job, which sometimes may not be about, you know, correcting every guy that doesn't know where to put their hands? Like, how do you find the time to just get on and not be distracted with what it is that drives you and makes you really passionate?
What's that? You know, only last week, being on the Today programme with the disgusting Quentin Letts of the Daily Mail, who, you know, I'm winning the argument, so then he turns around and just says, you know, she's such a glum bucket, she's so dull. You know, I would like to throw her to the floor, pin her to the floor and tickle her under the arms until she laughs. And you think, this is, you know, when all of this is going on, it doesn't occur to him that that kind of physical aggression, as done as a laugh, is acceptable. So of course I have to write about it.
I just hope I can find the energy. It all just seems like quite a lot right now, you know, there's so much going on. What do you think that people like Theresa May should be doing about these allegations? Do you think that her response so far has been an adequate one?
No, of course it hasn't been. Utterly hopeless. She should be setting up, together with all the other political parties, an entirely independent organisation that's nothing to do with the parties. It has to be an independent organisation that's totally separate to all politics, where people can go and complain and they can follow it through. Even then, though, when they do, it'll come back to the party. It's still going to make those people, they'd have to be very brave and possibly risk having a black mark put against them forever.
That's so depressing.
I know, I'm sorry.
It is, though.
I don't think there are easy answers, but I do think that bit by bit, if you have HR systems that are really well spelled out, and the rules are really firm, and they are really well enforced in every single workplace, gradually, bit by bit, people do get the message that they will be fired if they harass juniors. Looking back to the 1970s, we were so thrilled when Barbara Castle had passed the Equal Pay Act, Sex Discrimination Act. We thought, that's it, we've won, it's done and dusted. All you have to do is to pass a law and things happen. And of course they don't. It would still be 50 years now before we got equal pay if we went on progressing at the same slow pace that we're progressing at. In fact, last year it even fell back a bit. I think it's a real disappointment to find that passing laws is almost insignificant compared with the heavy lifting of making real cultural change that affects real people's lives, whether they're right down at the bottom or up at the top.